co-host. Thanks.
Actually, James, I think you might have to.
Can you share, Talena? I don't know. James, can you hear us?
I can share if not.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the ability
You do not?
to
To
give it
give
to
you
you.
sharing, yeah.
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah,
webinar.
I can make you a co-host. We are live, just so you know that.
Thank you, folks. Just going to make sure we have all our digital background functions in order, and then we'll call to order here. Perfect. Acknowledging that our time is at 3:02, I'd like to call this special regular meeting of the board in view of the public to order. First time in business, I want to acknowledge that we're privileged to meet on the traditional and unceded territory of the Platte, the Chilliwack, and the Sumath, territories upon which they've been stewards for time immemorial. The board also acknowledges the marginalization that many members of our community have experienced, whether as a result of race, sexual orientation, and gender identity, or other personal circumstances. The board is committed to providing a working and learning environment that recognizes the inherent dignity of all persons, that is inclusive of all, and that treats everyone with respect. Welcome, members. Thank you so much. Our first item, similar to our regular meeting held this past Tuesday, is to appoint our Secretary Treasurer to conduct business this evening. With that in mind, the motion before us is that in accordance with Section 69 of the School Act, the board designates Assistant Secretary Treasurer Raman Berard to perform the duties of the ST for the purposes of this meeting. Just ensuring I have a view of all members. Do we have a mover? I've that moved by Trustee Reichelt, seconded by Trustee Thronis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate. Thank you so much, folks. We have that approved. And welcome, Secretary Treasurer. Thank you so much. We have an agenda before us. I was just going to note before inviting mover and a seconder, this is business arising from our special meeting on Thursday, November 13th. The considerations this afternoon, this evening, are amending our capital bylaw to include this acquisition of property. This has been approved by the ministry to approve the borrowing of funds to purchase property, and then following the passage of both of those two items to consider approving the purchase itself. All members are in receipt of the agenda. I'm wondering if a member is willing to move. Have that moved by Trustee Bondar, seconded by Trustee Westerby. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to the question. All those in favor? Thank you, folks. We have an approved agenda, and we can move right into our business. Perfect. I am just going to take a quick beat on a point of privilege. I'm going to invite our Executive Assistant McAnally. Just keep an eye on the waiting room. We may have our seventh colleague joining us. It's just that after school transition time, and so we want to be mindful of time, but also ensure they can participate if they're able to do so this afternoon. Thank you. Colleagues, the capital bylaw has been previously circulated and presented by the Secretary Treasurer, Sangster. There's no new information contained within it, and I would highlight that we approved first reading at our meeting last week. Second reading is for the purposes of debate and or amendment. Third reading is for consideration and final decision. Before turning it over to colleagues, I just want to highlight this is about updating the plan itself as approved by the ministry. This isn't to approve the actual property acquisition. So I'm going to ask members to keep their comments specific to amending the plan itself. With that said, we're on to second reading. I'm wondering if we have a member willing to move or if there's any questions to dispose of. Trustee Bondar, did you want to start?
Happy to make the motion. I move that the board approve the second reading of capital project bylaw number 2025-26 CPSD 3303, number B2025-05C attached.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? That's seconded by Trustee Reichelt. Trustee Bondar, did you want to speak to amending the capital plan bylaw?
I don't have any comments on amending the plan. No, thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to open up the floor. If you'd like to speak to amending the plan, now would be a great time to do so. Not seeing anything. I'm going to move to the question. The motion is as stated by our colleague. All those in favor, please indicate. Thank you very much, Secretary Treasurer. We have that approved. Our next piece would be to do the third, and this would be final reading of the capital project bylaw. I'm looking for a mover on this piece. Trustee Thronis, please, and seconded by Trustee Rieschelt. Trustee Thronis, did you want to read it into the record?
I move that the board approve third reading and adoption of capital project bylaw number 2025/26 CPSD 33-03, number B 2025-05C with attachments.
Thank you. And as noted, Trustee Rieschelt seconded. Trustee Thronis, did you want to speak to this before I move to the question?
No, I have nothing further to say, except that I'll support this, the third reading.
Perfect. Anything further from members? Seeing nothing, we'll go to the question. It is as read by the member. All those in favor, please indicate. Thank you very much. Secretary Treasurer, we have our bylaw approved. And with that, we can move on to our next piece. This would be the financing resolution, which approves the borrowing of funds. I'll just highlight for members and for the benefit of those viewing, this is a single reading, passages by simple majority. And it has been highlighted previously by staff, but I just want to invite the superintendent to provide any additional context before opening up to members.
I'll provide some quick sorry, go ahead, Mr. Brown. Maybe you can provide some context.
Sure. Thanks, Superintendent Rohan. I mean, one of the things that we're meeting here to discuss is the purchase of the $9.1 million property for the future elementary school on Promontory Road. There are several steps that we must take to ensure that we comply and do our due diligence towards this purchase. Now, what we do know is that to proceed with this purchase, there are a few steps that are still pending. So one of the steps with the capital bylaw amendment, which was just approved, we have that over the line. The next is the financing resolution. So with this, the Secretary Treasurer and myself, the Assistant Secretary Treasurer, we have worked quite diligently with our legal counsel to secure borrowed sum of money of $6.5 million from the Bank of Nova Scotia. That agreement can only be signed after all the conditions of the purchase agreement have been met. So I'm really just referring to the amended bylaws and then this borrowing resolution. So just some information about this. To fund the transaction, $6 million of the $6.5 million will be borrowed from the Bank of Nova Scotia, and the district will fund the remaining approximately $3.1 million from the district's school site acquisition charge. So the district's portion will also incur some of the costs related to the GST, the due diligence costs, appraisal costs, and the related legal fees. And as you guys know, in accordance with the document that was shared, there will be an additional charge of roughly $282,000 per year for interest related to the line of credit. And the purchase agreement with the vendor and then the related subject removal is extended until tomorrow, November 21st. And we cannot sign the credit facility agreement with the bank until these conditions of the two amended bylaws and the borrowing resolution have been met. So at this stage, what we're doing is we're asking the board to approve or decline the borrowing resolution so we can proceed with the property acquisition.
Thank you so much, Assistant Secretary Treasurer. I'm just going to invite any questions from members. And if not, we can consider the resolution that's been presented. Certainly. I see Trustee Rieschelt. Am I taking it you're interested in moving?
I would like to move that the Board of Education authorize School District 33 Chilliwack to borrow from Scotiabank up to a maximum of $6,500,000 for school site acquisition.
Thank you. I have that moved by Trustee Rieschelt, seconded by Trustee Bondar. Trustee Rieschelt, did you want to speak to it?
I do, yes. So obviously borrowing money from the bank for property acquisition is not a standard thing that school districts do. But because of when this property has become available in the budget funding cycle of government, getting money directly from the government was not in the cards for this time. That doesn't necessarily mean we won't ever get that money. but it was not in the cards right now. And I think there is some risk for this district to borrow money from the bank, but I think for our district, there's more risk in losing this property because, as everyone knows, as long as I've been on the board and before I was on the board, but Trustee Swanky and I have been on the board for 7 years, and every single year, this is one of the things we're looking for as a property in Promontory. And I honestly didn't think we were ever going to find one. So the fact that there is one, I think the board would be negligent in letting it slip through our fingers. And I think that we just have to do it this way because that's the way the timeline has worked out for us. I am hopeful that possibly the government will come through with the funding eventually, but obviously that's no guarantee and we could be on the hook for this money. We have had to do that before with properties where we put in some of the district's money. It's certainly not ideal, and I do think we should be doing advocacy to try to get this money and not have it come out of our operations. But as a temporary measure, I think we really don't have a choice because we have to get this property because the existing school on Promontory has been overfull since it was built, even with additions. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Richot. Trustee Thronis.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to explain, as someone who is usually against debt, especially public debt, I wanted to explain why I'm going to support this motion. In these situations, I always ask, what's the worst that could happen? The worst case scenario would be that the province wouldn't pay us back for the land like they usually do, that it can't afford to build the school when that time comes, and then the land falls in value, and that leaves us with a loss. I think that's the worst case, but I don't think that's the likely case by any means. I think the best case, which is more probable, is that the province, which acknowledged in its letter of permission to us that we've been looking for a new school in Promontory for 10 years, they're very aware of it, will do as it usually does and fund the school and the land. And our families in the very crowded Promontory area will benefit from a new school over the long term. And if the province, for some reason, doesn't or can't approve the school, we'll still own the land, which will likely appreciate rather than fall in value. So I think, as my colleagues have said, there are real risks to this. It's a very unusual thing for school districts to borrow money. I think the benefits outweigh the risk, and we should seize this rare opportunity. So I'm going to vote in favor of the motion. But I want to leave us with a challenge. Should the province approve the new school, I think the challenge for us and our staff will be to accelerate the timeline so that kids now in kindergarten will be able to spend a few years in a new elementary school on Promontory. So I hope we can get started on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Thronis. I want to just invite from other members the opportunity to speak. We've heard from 2 colleagues on the subject of borrowing money for the purposes of the site acquisition. Trustee Bondar.
Thank you. I don't have a lot to add other than to just put my support behind making the purchase. I agree with my colleagues. Having an available, workable site on Promontory is something that actually I didn't think was ever going to come our way. And I'm actually really delighted that we have the opportunity. I appreciate that Trustee Thronis outlined some of the mitigation strategies that we have. But overall, I'm really excited about this possibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Westerby.
Thank you. And I do also echo everything that has been said so far and thank my colleagues for their words. I just want to take the opportunity to thank the property owner for coming to us first, recognizing that we had this need and giving us the opportunity to acquire this land. As I've mentioned before, we are competing with everybody for land and it creates a problem for everybody. So thank you once again for the community for stepping up for us, for our schools and for our students.
Thank you, Trustee Westerby. Trustee Procey, I'll be going to you next, but I'll just say for myself, I think my colleagues very well stated the considerations and around risk. I don't think that's anything we want to minimize. In fact, I would argue it's important consideration for the public to be aware of. With that said, I would also agree with many of the statements made around it is measured. It is it's contextualized by the benefit of a new school site on Promontory, which has been something that we've been wanting for quite some time to support the student learning, the student well-being that goes along with having a new school available to support those students. We've heard from everyone. There's no obligation to speak into it, Trustee Procey, but I do just want to give you the opportunity before suggesting we move to the question.
Let's get her done.
Thank you so much. I'm going to take that as the gentleman's called the question, and looking around, I'll also consider it consensus. With that said, the motion is as circulated. Unless there's objection, we'll move right into the question. All those in favor, please indicate. Thank you so much. Secretary Treasurer, we can acknowledge that that is approved by the Board of Education. The finer matter pending, as was noted by the Assistant Secretary Treasurer Barrar, is the actual acquisition bylaw itself. So the matter isn't whether or not we borrow money. We've already approved that. The matter is whether or not to spend that money on the purpose it was borrowed for. First reading has been completed. Second reading is regarding debate and/or amendment. And third reading will be consideration and final decision. Is there any question to be addressed prior to moving second reading? Not seeing any. Trustee Richelt, did you want to start?
I can start. I'm just wondering, is it necessary to do this as two separate motions, or could I move that second and third reading at the same time?
That is a great question. At this point, I'm going to suggest that we just do it separately.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
and
It very
anticipate
likely
a
is
lot
in
of
order.
debate, so I was
Yeah.
like, well, we could just, it would be funny to say we're going to borrow the money and then not buy it. But anyways, I move that the board approve second reading of the 5303 Promontory Road Chilliwack site acquisition bylaw 2025 number B2025-04A as attached.
I have that seconded by Trustee Bondar. Trustee Richelt, did you wish to speak to it?
Sorry, just before I moved it, I did say it would be very odd to approve the borrowing of money and not approve the purchase of the property. So I think we should buy this. Thank you.
Thank you. Just checking in. Any further comment from members? Seeing none, we can go to the question. This would be for second reading of approving the site acquisition. All those in favor, please indicate. Thank you so much. We have that approved, Secretary Treasurer. With that, I'm going to invite third and final reading. This would be approval adoption. I'm just going to look to a member. I recognize Trustee Richop. I'm going to go to Trustee Bondar.
All right. I move that the board approve the third reading and adoption of the 5303 Promontory Road Chilliwack site acquisition bylaw 2025 number B2025-04A attached.
Thank you. And I'm looking for a seconder. I have that seconded by Trustee Westerby. Trustee Prost, I was hoping you'd make the minutes. Trustee Westerby seconds. Trustee Bondar, did you want to
Third it.
Trustee Bondar, do you want to start us off?
I would simply add in the words of my colleague, let's get her done.
Thank you so much. I'm going to check in with members. Any other comments? Not seeing any, we can go right on to the question. The motion is as contained in your package and is read by the member. All those in favor, please indicate. Thank you very much. And Secretary Treasurer, Superintendent, Director Van Tassel, welcome. I'm happy to confirm that we've approved the site acquisition contingent on the updating of the plan and the borrowing of funds. So thank you so much, folks. I do have a couple just closing comments that are largely housekeeping. Also a couple comments from the board. First, I want to appreciate everyone. We are at 3:20, so I think we've been very purpose-driven in our time this evening. I also know time is valuable on the part of staff, so just thank you to everyone for being to the point and being concise in the considerations that I wish to raise. Just as we bring this process to a close, I want to thank the seller for working with us in good faith while we navigated and aligned the many processes required to acquire property outside of regular provincial funding cycles. It was highlighted by a couple members, but I think it's important that we surface that consideration. I also want to thank the respective ministers and ministry staff for collaborating with district staff behind the scenes to bring this forward. As was noted in our meeting last week, this was months of work to bring this forward. And it's only in the last week that it's been in view of the public. Finally, I just on behalf of the board want to thank district staff for bringing this forward as an option to serve the future well-being of the Chilliwack School District. As I just stated, this discussion has been quiet, but it has been taking place for some time, and the board has been exceptionally well represented at every step. On behalf of the board, my appreciation for addressing all those considerations we could anticipate and bringing this forward for direction to the board. Just in closing, the district will follow up with formal communications. There's nothing more that I can provide this evening. At this time, there's no other business before the board. Our next regular meeting will be on Tuesday, December 9th. Acknowledging that our time is 3:21, I want to acknowledge that we are adjourned. Thank you so much, folks, and have an excellent Thursday evening. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.